All right, I'm back here with another New Scott interview, and today we are in the Arthur Lightfoot Warm Room in Kentville, Nova Scotia, and I'm here with the one and only Boston bad boy, Jason Rumble. How you doing today, Jason?
I'm doing great. No other place we should be presently named than the War Room right here, because
It's actually warm.
warm.
W-A-R.
Oh, really? Well, they should name it the War Room because it looks like a war room where you would do like draft choices and stuff like that.
Were you always a fan of professional wrestling growing up?
Ever since I can remember watching a television, I've been a wrestling fan. I tell people I come from a Sicilian Italian family just outside of the Boston area, and Abruzzi, Italy, which happens to be the hometown of one legendary WWE Hall of Famer and a man who just passed away, the greatest wrestling champion in all of professional wrestling, Bruno Sammartino, is from. And not only in my grandmother's home, my great-grandmother's home, and my aunt's, there would be a picture of Jesus, the apostles eating dinner, and Bruno Sammartino. So, man, asking me if I was a wrestling fan, it was basically instilled. Bruno was everybody's probably watched the WWE Network by now, and the tribute to Bruno, and it goes true that Bruno was a huge legend, and especially to the Italian-American families here in the United States, not only in New York, but as you can see, in Massachusetts also.
Who was Bruno your favorite wrestler to watch growing up?
Bruno was really, because I was born in 1972, and, in those days, I recall up until probably 78, the champion I fell in love with was Bob Backlund, and it was never Hulk Hogan. I got to wrestle Bob, and, not many people can say they got to wrestle their idols. Bob Backlund, without a doubt, made me want to become a professional wrestler.
I met him once in Providence. It was just a couple of years ago, and I thought he was going to kill my hand when he shook it. He gripped it so hard, man. And I couldn't imagine how strong he was in his prime.
Well, I faced him probably 8 or so, maybe 9 years ago on NWA On Fire, and if anybody would like to go online to the NWA On Fire archives, I believe that somewhere in that YouTube you can see me take on Bob Backlund in a collegiate-style wrestling match. I did amateur wrestling as a kid, and a little good story behind that. Bob hadn't wrestled matches in years. And with the Savoldis, who ran things for the NWA On Fire, and Bob had started to come around and watching the tape, and Bob studied a lot of the guys that were on there, and no matter what people say about and think about my wrestling and what I am in professional wrestling, for a WWE Hall of Famer, and this roster of NWA On Fire had some good Jersey guys on there.
What year was this?
We're talking a little late 2000s, before 2010ish, and start, in around that area probably. Justin Carino was on there, who's now, one half of the New Heavenly Bodies. Matt Taven was on those shows. The runner-up to Tough Enough, Luke Robinson, was on those shows. And those guys, Tommaso Ciampa, who's now in NXT against Johnny Gargano, those guys were all on tape. We're all on the same films that went back to Bob Backlund. I got picked to work Bob Backlund. None of those other guys. Hand-picked, barred none, hands down. He took me aside and picked me to work with. And not just one match. We worked about 5 different matches. I got to be his tag team partner at one point. He did all the old school moves to me where he picks me up with one arm, and this dude's over 50, probably 60 or whatnot, picked me up with one arm and placed me on the top turnbuckle, the old school move he used to do. So, you know what I mean? I call that a feather in my cap, because it wasn't like I begged to work him or anything. He picked me out of a really good little roster to, for him to go and come out of retirement for that. So Bob Backlund was my favorite, and to know all that stuff, it's just a huge feather in my cap, and it's always something that I, so to speak, keep in my back pocket, and I always remember to myself when wrestling isn't feeling all that good. I think about the good things that real wrestlers, real people in this business, real opinions matter, and his opinion matters. So if people out there think I'm the shits, at least Bob Backlund didn't.
Now, this isn't meant as a knock to you. You're not an overly big guy.
No.
That's fair to say, right?
No, it's always been that way.
What was it about professional wrestling that made you think that you could do it?
Really? Okay, great question. Chris Candido. Body Donners came out, WWE, and I started to see the smaller wrestlers. I went live to a CWA show, which main evented Jimmy Superfly Snooker and the Warlord. It was Tony Rumble's company back at the time. It was well before Tony and I had crossed paths and met. And I was probably at 21 or 22. I was just getting into my football career. I went, and the girl I was with at the time, I looked at her, and a guy named Steve Carino came out the door, and he looked like the 1, 2, 3 kid. And I was like, I looked at her, and I was like, I could get in the ring and do this. Like, this guy's not much bigger than me, maybe tall-wise, but he was a very slanky, lean kid, and like, you know, that was what first piqued my interest to say, wow, I could do this. And then I just started going to more local indie shows and getting back into following wrestling again, because I was playing football, and I always watched Monday Night, but I made it more of a thing to, like, you know, really get in depth. And then I just by the time I was 24, I was a bouncer at a local bar in Malden, Massachusetts. A girl named Erin McKenzie, who was she was engaged to John Cronus, one half of the Eliminators, with Perry Satin, probably the greatest ECW tag team champions, next to the Dudley Boys of all time. And she introduced me to Walter Killer Kowalski. It wasn't until Perry Satin basically cussed me out backstage and called me a fucking mark and said he didn't want to talk to me anymore until I joined Kowalski's school. So I went, got my $1,750, and from there on in, it was a wrap.
Were you wrestling before you got trained? You said you were backstage.
No, I was backstage only because of the simple fact that I made friends with Perry and John through knowing Erin. So I started I was following ECW for a year. Yeah. So I was getting in for free, and I was always athletic looking, and so most of the people there before I was one of the boys thought I was one of the boys. Right. So.
Now, you were trained in the days before the internet really became a thing. How did you go about finding the training school you went to?
Through Perry Satin and through Erin McKenzie. They had told me about Killer Kowalski's School of Professional Wrestling. I had read about it. I knew it was a local thing in Boston. I did not know that I actually walked by this place on the way to high school for 4 years, and did not know it was up there.
That's crazy.
And to know that it was actually behind where I worked as a bouncer was even more screwed up. Yeah. So they steered the way, and when Perry told me off, I called up Erin, and I go, Erin, you need to take me to this Kowalski place. What's the deal? And she knew the days the school was open, and she took me up, and she introduced me to Killer Kowalski, and from there on in, I'll be honest, I tell people this all the time, if I hadn't started professional wrestling, I'd probably be dead or in jail. And that's no lie, no shoot. People who really, that's a shoot, no, you know what I mean, bang right at you. Those people who know me truly know the real Jason Delegata. Whatever, nowadays people can go online and find out what your real name is. People can, people who know me know I was, I grew up on the streets, man. I was living life on my own when I was 15 years old. There wasn't many things that a kid growing up outside of Boston, Massachusetts, not in suburbia, but in a city that I didn't do. People who are badasses don't gotta brag what they did in life. All I can tell you is this, that I was, I ran with a big crew, and dangerous things could have happened, and I thank God for, Killer Kowalski saving my life.
Now, you're trained by Killer Kowalski. For people that don't know, he's trained a ton of really amazing wrestlers over the years. Most famously, his most famous student's probably Triple H.
Yep.
Did you agree? What was it like being trained by him?
Well, I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of people like now that will say I was trained by Killer Kowalski, and the last legit class that Walter could get in the ring with and legitimately show them a move or do a move with them was the class that had myself, Slick Wagner Brown, Luis Ortiz, and Bo Douglas and some other guys that came from that New England era.
Bo Douglas, he was up here.
Yep, Bo Douglas has been up here. Were the last legit class that Walter realistically trained and would like do moves with you. After that, Walter sat in the chair, would critique what you did, and would have guys like myself doing the moves and pertaining to. Yes, you went to the school, that's all good. But once Malden was knocked down and another local promotion bought his name and bought the rights for his school, he showed up on a Saturday afternoon. And quote unquote, when he showed up on Saturday morning, so to speak, the only thing the guy looked forward to was going to the buffet to eat afterwards. Sorry to say that to the guys that went to that Walter Killer Kowalski era of school, but it was not Walter Killer Kowalski's school of professional wrestling. It was his name and not his legit recipe. That's it. It was his name. That's all. His name, and him being there on Saturdays and going to the buffet to eat and tell his stories, because that's what happens to us wrestlers when we get old. We still want to be part of the crew. We still want to do the things. We want to have those memories. And one of the best things is going out to eat with the boys and talking shit. And Walter loved that.
Was there something about training that was harder for you to pick up over something else? And on the other side, was there something that you just caught on to quite easy?
I'm not going to brag, but I caught on rather easy, man. I loved wrestling as a kid. There was so many things that stuck in my mind. From the time I was 8 years old, this is how I got to know Tony, like how me and Tony Rumble broke ice. My mother was a street worker in the combat zone in Boston. My mother was also a pole dancer at the Naked Eye. She did whatever she could to make sure food was on the table. Whether it was turning tricks or taking a dollar bill in her fucking thong, that's all. And that's my mom, and I love her no matter what. And there was a few moms that used to get driven home by a cab driver, and his name was Sarge. And Sarge used to take one of the bigwigs to the Boston Garden, was his personal Boston taxi driver. And he used to get the best tickets to the WWF shows, man. I used to sit front row. There wasn't a time from when I was 8 years old till I was 15 that I did not miss. I went and when I tell you I went every month, I sat either on the balcony row A, which double A is where the technique signs were. I sat that row right in the middle, either where the wrestlers would come out and you could lean over like this and spit on them, or whether or not you were directly across from them. And sometimes we used to sit on the Molson sign, right where they would come out, either on top or to the side. And we had friends, like there was people that went every month that like you knew. It was almost like a season ticket. And then once he used to hand us pocketfuls of quarters because he was a cab driver. And we'd go down to the old school arcade in the bottom of the Boston Garden, and like we knew people, be like, hey man, and be honest with you, from knowing people, it saved my ass. When I was 14 years old, me and my buddies went into the North End to buy fireworks, because that's where you used to go when you get on the Orange Line, and we used to buy illegal fireworks. And I knew the kids because I grew up in the North End. I had cousins there. And what would happen is you would get jumped going back on the train to North Station, and it was downstairs in a sketchy alleyway that, like, dude, you could get killed. And like, in back in them days, we're talking the 80s, you would have never got found, okay? So it just so happened that the kids who jumped us and put us up against the wall I started talking, and when I talked, one of the dude who jumped my friend 3 dudes down goes, "Hey, is your name Jason?" I go, "Yeah." He's like, "It's me, Marky." I used to buy scalp tickets off this kid. Because we started being able to go in the wrestling shows alone. And the kid goes, "Drop these guys, man. Give them back their fireworks. Jason's cool as shit. He buys tickets off me every month for the wrestling show." So I saved my buddy's asses that day. And I knew him not only from buying tickets from him, but he was one of the older dudes that used to be in the arcade when we would go. And every month after the show, we'd go up to the Kowloon restaurant in Saugus and be autograph takers. Sarge was the best, man. I never missed a month. I seen Bruno in the cage against Roddy Piper. I seen classic matches that no one could ever see. I was there the night the match had the side suplex with the Nux. Bang, Chico Santana, and there came home the front Continental Championship. I went hysterical to see a belt change in the Boston Garden. What a time, man. Wow. Awesome. Bob Backlund, classic matches that would go legit 59 minutes and 59 seconds. You look at the clock, it would be 10:01. Bob Backlund would come out. By the time the bell rang, it would be 11:05. So with the entrances and stuff, 2 to 3 minutes, man. I seen Bob Backlund, Sergeant Slaughter. Backlund was over the top rope in the deal, and Backlund was legitimately, his feet were dangling on the floor, and Sergeant Slaughter would pull him back in with a Cobra clutch and then pull him back down. 15 minutes. The boys nowadays could never do that for about 5 seconds. After the first time, they'd be like, "I'm blown up, please let me out of this."
What are your memories of your first match?
My first match was awesome.
When was it?
My first match was in 1997. It was a tag team match. Me and one of my best buddies, Slick Wagner Brown, versus the Archangel, Steve King, a famous WWE jobber, and Damon Darkangelo. It was a good match because it was against 2 of the guys we went to school with. We got our asses handed to us because when you're green, you don't know how to take over. And the way that we learned how to do professional wrestling, Walter really frowned upon us, being together and talking. Walter really instilled in us that wrestling was supposed to be wrestling, and you're supposed to teach the fans that it's real, that fuck-ups happen in life, and that means a fuck-up can happen in the ring. And I've always stuck to that standard. I'm a very non-calling person. There's a lot of people who don't enjoy my style, and I'll be honest with you, I could, and there's not a lot of people that can do my style, that are confident in their wrestling ability to go out there and with not just saying this, that, or the other, a couple of words, knowing 1 or 2 things that can go out there and have a great match. And I've been doing it 22 years, so I must be doing something right.
Yeah, for sure. Now, this next part kind of confuses some people, or some people just don't understand, or they don't believe it, or they don't get it. You were part of the original NWA TNA?
Yep.
Like, you were an NWA junior
heavyweight champion on
right?
3
now
different occasions.
That whole, how you got involved with that and everything about it.
The whole NWA thing was that TNA was looking to create a brand new product, obviously, whatever the name of the company was at the time with the Jarretts. They needed something that was basically a credible title. And obviously they went after the history of the NWA World Championship. They didn't go after the junior heavyweight. They didn't go after the United States title. They basically went after the NWA World Championship because if you pay attention, the tag team champions were TNA tag team champions. They weren't NWA tag team champions. They didn't even focus on the NWA tag team champions. But with part of the agreement was that they would use people like myself to go down to Tennessee and have the quote-unquote the chance to be on a pay-per-view. So after a while, I was living in Ocala, Florida, off and on, and the guy's name was Kenny Garrett, the father of the famous now Santana Garrett. And I remember her when she was 11 or 12 years old. And but anyways, just you lived around that area. and you showed up at the fairgrounds, and if they used you for the show, they used you for the show. But if you did one show, you had the ability to then put on, you were part of the roster. So as long as you were showing up on a Thursday night, man, you could claim you was part of the roster to be on their pay-per-view. I made their Explosion show probably about a dozen times, and I made probably one live show, and that was in Orlando, Florida. At that time, touring with NWA, Steve Corino was the world heavyweight champion. I was touring with him. I would then tour along with the New Heavenly Bodies, which was Crazy Chris Nelson, with Vito DiNucci, managed by Jimmy Del Rey. And the thing too was NWA, little franchises like my NWA New England. If we had shows, we could give them shows to the NWA TNA brass, and they would. My shows would be advertised on the TNA $5 weekly pay-per-view thing that they had. So that's basically what the roster was. Once you made the roster and was seen on a match, you technically could say you was part of the roster. There was tons of indie workers that got no spots, that would just pay to live in rooms that were down the street, because a room in Nashville was only $40 and there'd be 6 of the boys living in one of them.
Now, we're going to jump ahead here a little bit. How did you originally get involved with Maritime Wrestling in Devon Chittick? Working for Devon, you haven't worked for anyone else up here, right?
Yeah,
just
Devon? This was just Devon.
How did you get involved with Devon? Was it through Sonny?
I'm sure that, Sonny Roselli introduced us. I'm pretty sure that Devon's probably told the story on how he was hungover, and he had to work me, and the ring that he worked me in was like a trampoline, and he took my splash, and it recoiled, and I made him puke, and he was very embarrassed and thought I'd never talk to him. But at the time, man, it didn't really bother me, man. It is what it is. Made a great friendship. He had been trying to get me up there a few times back, but at that time, man, I had a really busy schedule. Just indie-wise, I was making a real good name for myself, and I was making good money. I was also I lived in the family tree. I was a male dancer, entertainment-wise, doing bachelorette parties and male reviews, and I was making a shit ton of money, shaking my ass and kicking ass. So, and just certain times it didn't line up, and then finally, things lined up for a tour, and it was when Jason Holiday was in the air, and I lived at his house. I roughly was here for the first time. I was here for 6 weeks. It was, and from there on in, it became an addiction. And Devon is now basically, I don't even call, like I tell people, I don't have best friends, I have family. I choose to break bread with him. And no matter what anybody says about Devon Chittick, I know him better than anybody else, probably, other than maybe a couple of people in this world. And some people just don't let people in, and that's the way it is, people.
Now, was the first tours you did up here the tours he did with Newfoundland, like of Newfoundland?
In Newfoundland, man.
Wow,
yeah. Newfoundland, man. I did Newfoundland. I did the Labrador thing when we got stuck on the dirt road, and we were gonna kill Devon. Me, Grimes, and Von Schmidt. We got to the arena. We threatened to get on the ferry the next day and go home, because it was so unprofessional. Because if you ever traveled on this dirt trail road, there was legit grizzly bear, like from me to you, that if you took you couldn't pull over. We blew a flat tire. There's no cell phone service, only radio phone. They tell you enter this road at your own risk. We could not find the spare tire on the minivan, because the rental minivan, everything was written in French or Japanese. What a shoot.
On those tours, was that the first time you would have met Mike Hughes?
Me and Mike Hughes worked a shitload of times. And he had just come off of his stint as being Hangman Hughes in Puerto Rico.
Now, you guys had some ups and downs over the years. I remember You guys didn't get along.
Can I tell you, man? I honestly don't believe that we didn't get along. I think it's just created hearsay, and somebody talks shit and tells him this, and then somebody talks like I never not liked Mike Hughes. Let's just get that on record. People just assume things. The only thing that was ever said that I probably ever said about Mike is I would think the same thing, that when people such as me come into an area that it's his area, Devon's his friend, and I had some pull. It's two alphas meeting, man. It's nothing against each other, nothing at all. But we both want the best for what's going on because we both have a huge passion for the business, and people I think perceive that as shit talking. That's nothing bad, man. If people came into my locker room where I'd been for a while, and then I'd seen that person was having a good giving that the promoter a good feeling of being around, that I quite possibly I would be like a little defensive to the certain aspect, but I don't believe that it was really never shown, because Mike was always open. Mike always partied with me, so I think it just could have been a lot of paranoia, man. That's all. I never hated Mike. Hate's a freaking huge word to say. I never could do anything that he couldn't do anything for me to hate him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I just believe. I just believe
right?
it was a hearsay shitbag talk by other guys that said stupid things. That's all.
Everything's good now. 'Cause
Yeah.
you guys wrestled not here, but the next night after here last year.
Yeah, we did, man, and
Dartmouth,
he did great business with me. He basically gave me the patch, you know what I mean, on the biker's chest, on the biker's vest, man. He gave me the patch, he anointed me, and that, like I said, there was never I don't believe to myself, there was never no hate or heat. I just think it was perceived notion that I said stuff about him and he said stuff about me, and it's perceived notion,
right,
because it would never happen. There isn't any atmosphere for that to happen, and you've got to be a real adult to probably understand that and fathom those. And not many people in the wrestling business outside of professional wrestling have a true life and can be adult about other situations, such as the fake situation that we create for ourselves.
Right. And another guy, me and you shot an interview after a show one time where you talked a lot about Lincoln Steen.
Yeah, I did. I talked.
What was going on there?
The Lincoln Steen thing was a comment that Narcissus Saint had started, that he basically trashed my matches with Narcissus Saint. That Steen had trashed my matches with Narcissus Saint. That he had said that they were the shits, that he was a way better worker than me, and things of that magnitude.
I believe one of the exact comments was, the only reason you guys went out and did anything was because my camera was there, and that's what set everything off.
Okay, well, can I tell you, it don't matter to me if the camera's there or not. I want to go out there and put on a great match night in and night out, and I just was spurting some stuff that, I'd be honest with you, if I was Lincoln Steen, and does it take a payday for you to legitimately get off your couch and to just come to a local show and say, man, I want to see this. I want to confront Jason Rumble and be like, man, what's your problem with me? And that draws money, my friend. I was trying to draw money with you. You believe, and that's great that you believe in your wrestling credentials, that you're a way better worker than me, and that's all great, dude. That's all great. I know that you promote a show a year, If you believe you're that much of a man, take the money out of your pocket and have good old Harold come down, and he can put it on film that you made me look like a fool. That's all I'm stating, dude. Fact. That's my newest thing. Fact. If you want to make it fact, come down. You see where the posters are, or ask a person that books wrestling to call Jason Rumble and go find out what it is for him to come here, and we have a great match, you and I, and may the best man win. So that means who's ever blown up or who can ever shoot the 3 on is the winner. We come down and we have a great time, and that way you showcase your abilities. I showcase that I'm the shits and I'm old and washed up. That's all. But I like you, Lincoln Steen. I like all your comments on Instagram. I have no problem with you either. It's just if you're gonna talk shit, come on down to the toilet bowl and let the tidy bowl man clean your ass for you.
I guess you guys haven't spoken since.
No, I've never even spoken to him.
You'd be open to talking about it though?
Oh, I would be open to talking with him. I got no problem with that.
Yeah.
I just would like to clear the air. If you're going to say I'm a shitty wrestler, because that to me is calling me a shitty wrestler, or saying I'm a half-ass wrestler, that I don't perform if a camera ain't on. And that is far from me.
Now, I guess it was about 4 years ago. Yeah, 2014. There was a show that Devon was, or a tour that Devon was really excited over, the Beauty Slammers
Yeah,
tour.
man, go right on it.
It didn't draw as expected.
No, it draw the fucking shits.
What went wrong?
What went wrong?
You had two of the best female wrestlers in the world. One of them, in my opinion, is the best wrestler ever.
Yeah.
Male or female.
Yeah.
What went wrong?
The promotion of it. Not the way it was promoted, but I believe by going into established towns that Devon had already created under the mainstream name, that it was a horrible way, it was horrible for him to not put Mainstream Wrestling Presents Beauty Slammers of Wrestling, and to still had just, you could have had 3 women's matches, 2 male matches, and it could have been just, I believe when they seen the colors, the new pink, the new blue, the new logo, the new this, the new that I believe to the regular wrestling fan that of the established towns of the time was the thing that blew up for him. I believe it's not by not using the MSW name in some way, shape, or form and implicating that logo, the brand as they call it nowadays, by not introducing the brand that you created, to just think that you could put chicks on a poster with a brand new name in towns you established, it was not a very good decision. And I said that to him.
Is that the only thing you would have done differently? Is the mainstream name, or?
The mainstream name, I think having the girls on there was a great idea. The girls was a great idea. I think it was a thing coming. Do I believe maybe probably have cut back on how many girls he had? Yeah. Like I probably would have only had 4.
There were supposed to be 2 more.
Whoa, Jesus, that would have been horrible. I think it was an over-influx of girls. I believe it was an over-influx of women that he had to the show. That I just think he should have just introduced it as a division and had broken some hearts with the guys, which he already did, and said, I'm going to bring this strong crew and this strong crew. He brought too many people from Ontario. He brought too many people from there. He should have just used it as the headline, the Serena Deeb versus Sarita from Sarasota, aka from TNA. Yeah. That and just, I believe probably just jumping into thinking all female wrestling was already over, which it realistically, I hope Canada doesn't take this as an insult, but you guys are like 10 years technologically and 10 years look-wise behind what the United States does. So I believe that 10 years, right now would it be a perfect time for a Canadian promotion to say, I'm going to promote an all-women show and believe it can draw. Yeah. Whereas in 5 to 7 years ago, or 4 to 7 years ago, it was the shits of a fucking idea. Right. That it just should have been introduced. That's the way I look at it. I've been coming here for a dozen years, and I just believe some things are behind. The look is behind, whatever's behind, but the time is still behind a little bit in this country to have force-fed what could have been an all-women's card. Right. But I believe that Beauty Slammers was to start today with And we turned back the clock, and VCW wasn't invented here to come to the Maritimes, and it was still mainstream, and Devon owned it. It would be Mainstream Wrestling presents the Beauty Slammers of wrestling, and then you could probably go off at something, because that's the way Sheldon Goldberg did things. You know what I mean? Sheldon did it right in New England. He did NECW with Triple W, which was World Women's Wrestling, and the way that Sheldon introduced it to not lose on the product is he did a double ticket show. So for the price of one, you go early, you watch all the women, then you watch an all male show.
Right.
And it was one big ticket. So maybe that was another way he probably could have gone at it, is made a double show. Scott had, you know what I mean? And that could have been the intermission. Watch Beauty Slammers, bang, and then intermission time, and then you watch Mainstream Wrestling, you know what I mean? It could have been one super ticket price. I just believe it wasn't promotion-wise and brand-wise promoting, not putting up posters or advertising, and that was not the problem. I believe wrong time and not utilizing the brand that you had established already.
2 years ago, almost to the date, it was 2 years and a month ago, you were the UCW heavyweight champion, wrestling Matt Hardy in this building that we're in right now.
Yeah.
Later that summer, you lost the title.
Yeah.
To Dylan, I don't remember.
I don't even know who I lost
Dylan Bostic?
Yes, Dylan Bostic, yeah.
I knew what it was. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing
Good
it right.
kid, good kid.
But yeah, you lost the title that summer on the first show of that tour,
Yeah.
I think. And after that tour, you were never back. What happened? Never back with UCW.
I believe it just had to do with the see, I have no problem getting into this. I lost the title because I think it was an easier way for the new regime, so to speak, to come in the door. The more I think about it, the new regime, it's funny how none of the new regime wanted to wrestle me to try and take the belt off of me, that they put a very well experienced kid that had trained in OVW that could probably, if I wanted to shoot, could shoot back with me. So that now that you say this, like I'm recapping it, so maybe it's the new regime didn't want to wrestle me. I thought I would do bad business, but I didn't mind. I understood. I seen the writing on the wall because at the time my best friend Devon was getting the writing on the wall, and you could see it from the tour before that, you know, this is professional wrestling. Your job is never safe. It's always, what can you do for me? What have you done for me lately? And if another guy comes up and people see potential, you can easily be replaced. I have no problem with the new regime with UCW. I was on a show 3 weeks ago in the United States with Marcus, and I've seen him 2 to 3 other times on shows, and he always hugs me. We shake hands. We're good friends. I've always expressed interest that I would go back to work with UCW, even though my friend would not probably like it. But I have 2 kids, I have a mortgage, and I have a wife. So, you know, I got bills to pay. There's been expressed interest between both sides. Chuck and I get along great. And, you know, people think that I didn't go back because it was, you know, oh, Devon's your boy, so you're not going to go back there. No, I did not go back there because, per se, through the rumor mill, they had stripped certain things to the, how can I say, the proverbial pay deals, and rumor had it that they weren't going to be doing certain things no more. So instead of me going to the legit horse, which is Chuck, and saying, what is this I'm hearing, that now no longer you're going to offer this, that it's just this and that's it, I probably overreacted and probably should have called Chuck myself and could have saved my spot. But at the same point, I seen how very cliquey the locker room was becoming, and I just, you know, I didn't want to be in the middle of people talking shit about my friend. That's all. So with not calling Chuck and not wanting to be in the middle, I just felt that I should take myself out of that place. I believe it's a much better place now, where we're in. I tell people a lot that, like, over the past year, I've had a lot of sit down. Mentally, I've grown up. I had a very rough patch in my life where my wife and I split up. I had a lot of time to think, and now with a lot of thinking, my wife and I have a great relationship going on. I learned to come to grips that you need to talk to people, and you need to, express your feelings, and the biggest thing that probably mentally frustrated me was having a frown on at all times, and harboring bad feelings towards people, and this, that, and the nature. So I just figure it this way: it's a lot harder to get rid of a frown than it is to put a smile on your face. And life is real short, man. If people want to, I believe that just my buddy Devon needs to sit down with the people that he has problems with, and people need to accept opinions are like assholes, and everyone has it. Would you rather a person just legitimately shit talks you behind your back, or a person tells you you're a piece of shit to your face? I'd rather a person told me I was a piece of shit to my face, because I'm going to respect that person so much more.
All right, we're back with part 2. We had to cut the interview off earlier because the show was getting ready to start and you needed to go do your thing.
That is correct, Amundo.
You've been up to the Maritimes enough over the years. A lot of people that come up from the States wouldn't generally probably be able to answer this question as good as you, but who do you think is the best wrestler right now in the Maritimes?
Wow. People would think that I would probably say Marcus Burke, but I'm not going to say that, because I don't believe that Marcus Burke is the best professional wrestler, because to me a wrestler is judged not upon being a spot monkey. And I'm not necessarily, I like Marcus. I think his wrestling capabilities are great. He's gone halfway around the world, become champions on his first booking. To me, the best wrestler, and I just faced him about a month ago, and he's 6'9". He's close to probably 270, 80 pounds. He's a freak of nature, and he's already being looked at by the WWE, and his name is Sir Charles Winston. I believe that kid is the best wrestler right now, bar none, hands down, in this Maritimes thing. I think he'd take Marcus Burke, he'd twist him into a pretzel, put a little salt on him, and sprinkle him down with some mustard, and eat him like an event pretzel, man. That's my honest to God opinion. Sir Charles Winston will be in the WWE within the next year, bar none.
What are your thoughts on the support the fans give Maritime Wrestling?
The Maritime wrestling fans in general are incredible wrestling fans. They remind me of doing a lot of the work that I did down in the United States, being in the South, where less of what we do capability-wise in the ring, not lessness, but meaning the art of professional wrestling. They respect the moves, they respect the thing. I think they're some of the best wrestling fans. They support wrestling very well. When I first started here, there was 1 to 2 promotions. Now it seems like there's 53 different promotions. They're still coming out to support the wrestling. So I can't, I love coming here at the bar none. So the Maritime wrestling fans have been very, very good to me and to those shows that I've been on.
If you could put one match on a DVD of yours to show somebody what you do, what match would you choose?
Wow. Probably something either recent or from when I first started. Kowalski's in my first 2 years, because I used to do half-hour matches that legitimately the moves we did could probably take us an hour in, and that would be Damon Doc Angelo back in the day. But that's not the match I would send. To be quite honest with you, the match I would probably send would be with Teddy Hart that I had about a calendar year ago today. We had 2 epic matches that, just showed that, even if my offense wasn't being utilized much, the way I sold and the energy that we put behind it, and just the fact to show that a person of I can hang with a person of that magnitude.
What does the future hold for the Boston bad boy Jason Rumble?
Well, evidently, I'll be honest with you. I've said this many times. The Boston bad boy Jason Rumble is no longer a boy. He is a man. He is the alpha, the alpha dog of professional wrestling, the alpha dog Jason Rumble, the alpha dog club. I'll always be known as the boldest, the baddest, simply the best, the Boston bad boy Jason Rumble. But like I said, I'm a man now. I'm well seasoned. I've morphed myself to being the alpha dog. My perfect thing would be, I would love to catch on with the company and be like a backstage guy, somebody that's helping right matches, right angles, or I could see myself working in Florida down at the developmental center and helping the wrestlers of tomorrow. I've come to grips that at 46 years old, I should feel lucky that I'm even, still relevant in independent professional wrestling, that people still reach out to me and book me. That I'm proud of, and I love that. But it's getting towards the time now where I believe I'm gonna start to be more of an asset to the up and comers, to what my eye sees, to what my brain thinks upon professional wrestling. So I think there's a lot of companies out there, if they're writing real wrestling. I'm not looking for indie stuff. I'm looking for serious people, and I mean, those who have sat with me and talked real professional wrestling know that I know my shit. So if there's anybody out there that's looking for backstage help, looking for creative help, things of that magnitude, Jason Rumble is your man.
Do you have any closing comments for any friends, family, or fans that might be watching this?
Years ago I was, cocky, arrogant, cocksucking son of a bitch, and I'm still that man 22 years later, and I have no problem telling people to their face that whether I love you or I hate you. I've always been that upfront type of a guy, and I'll always continue to be that upfront of a guy. I'm appreciative of every day and every second that I'm still able to spend entertaining fans. Whether fans hate me, whether fans love me, that means I'm doing my job right. And at the end of the night, that's what makes me happy, knowing that I went to the show, I put on the best match that I possibly could put on with what I'm given. And let's just understand that, with what I'm given. I just appreciate everything, man. I wake up nowadays, I'm much more appreciative. I wish that I had treated things better. Title runs that I had, and I took a lot of things for granted, and I know now when I wake up I take nothing for granted, because my gods don't tell me and email me and say I have the right to wake up the next morning. So I guess every day I wake up, I'm appreciative for everything. I give thanks. I have a new way of thinking in life, that just being honest with people. As I said before in this interview, the more time you spend like this and mad, the less time you spend like this. And this is the most best time in the world, is being like this and being happy, man. That's all I want to be, is happy. So if people got a problem with me, or I got problems with people, I just tell them, And if I've pissed people off in the past, I'm sorry. And if you want to talk to me, man, I got an open door policy. You just reach me. Yeah, that's right. I got Facebook. I'm on Messenger. You just look for me, and you ask me any question you want, man. I got no problem answering them questions. And closing, I love what I do, and I hope that I can wake up tomorrow and do it again and entertain the fans. That's the best thing. I love professional wrestling. I love entertaining the fans. I love being part of the locker room. I love the young people that want to know things. And like I said, I'm just appreciative. I'm very appreciative every day.
Well, I first met you probably about a decade or more ago by now, somewhere around that. And I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed watching your career here in the Maritimes. I've really enjoyed getting to know you as a performer and a person. and I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to do this interview with me.
Oh no, I hold you in high regard. There, New Scott. I'm a mark for your stuff. Without having a guy like you film us and put us out there, nobody realistically knows about it. So it's right back at you. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Excellent. Peace out.